today's session, in addition to showing what marketing automation can look like inside of Infor CRM, today's session is going to focus quite a bit on the whole notion of the buyer journey and some significant changes to how we handle and manage the interactions with potential buyers of our products and services, especially in the early part of the funnel. A lot of this is very relevant to the technology, because what the technology is doing and why companies are very interested in integrating marketing automation to CRM systems is because of these changes to the buyer journey. So we're going to kind of set the stage a little bit and talk about some concepts that I think most people would find educational and interesting, and then at the end we'll flip over and we'll show some concrete examples of what this looks like in a product. So firstly, we want to define this notion of a buyer journey, and then we'll get into why this is relevant to CRM and marketing automation. So basically, you're looking at a progression of steps that somebody's going to take from the point at which they begin researching a product or service to evaluating different solutions, and then ultimately comparing vendors and then making purchase decisions. And today, more so than ever, and this trend will continue indefinitely, people are self-pacing a big chunk of this buyer journey. There's been research from Serious Decisions, which is a great analyst firm that covers a lot of funnel management, and they looked at a very extensive set of data from a study they commissioned a few years ago, and found that as much as 70% of a person's research is self-paced and complete by the time they ever interact with a salesperson. Okay, so the first rule of the buyer journey club: you don't control it, the buyer does. Okay, we've lost, as sales organizations, a lot of control of the buyer journey. Now think of it this way: if I'm a salesperson, let's say we're just dealing with a technology solution and it's 1999, and I'm engaging with somebody who's researching, I, as the salesperson, control the vast majority of that person's research about my company. I would give out brochures, case studies, research reports, and there's a lot of interaction, human-to-human interaction back and forth between the salesperson and the buyer early in the funnel. And good salespeople were particularly good at dishing out the content in a certain progression that kept the people engaged and interested through the buy cycle. Now, none of that happens, or a very significant amount of that used to happen between person to person now happens online digitally. Okay, and as marketers, you know, we've been shoveling content out in a variety of different digital channels for years now. So much so that there's so much content out there. Challenge one, getting found. Challenge two, putting out content that keeps people engaged. Challenge three, which is the one we're dealing with today, is figuring out who these people are that are accessing our information and how can we pull them into our funnel, meaning how do we pull them into the CRM and get them on the phone with a salesperson. So that's conceptually what we're going to tackle today. So let's talk briefly about buyer personas. Buyer personas and buyer journeys go hand in hand. A buyer persona is basically the demographic information about somebody, their title, their company, what industry they work in. It's also things like the type of buyer they are. Are they an evaluator, a financial buyer, decision maker? And most of folks who've gone through any kind of formal sales training like solution selling or Miller Heiman, et cetera, is going to know how we define these buyer types. And then there's interest in pain points. Okay, so why are people looking to buy our solution, or why are different buyers looking to buy our solution? Are they solving a financial problem? Are we cheaper, better, faster? Are they solving a technical issue that exists? Or are they purely looking for new features to help them do their jobs more efficiently and effectively? So we think in this notion of content marketing. Remember when I said marketers are shoveling tons and tons and tons of content out there through digital channels. So what marketers are now trying to do is map content to the buyer journey stages and the personas. We're looking at demographic information. We're looking at the buyer types. We're looking at the interest and the pain points, all these things that we just mentioned. And what we're trying to do is figure out who these people are, the type of buyer they are, and maybe where they're at in their journey, and then feed content to them to either keep them engaged or get them engaged with a salesperson. Okay, so let's break this down and look at it this way. There's essentially three stages, distinct stages of a buyer journey. There's the awareness stage, there's the consideration, and then finally there's the purchase stage. This awareness stage is by and large controlled by marketing, and inbound marketing in particular, where we are trying to get found. You know, we know there's people out there looking for the solution that we sell, and we want them to find us because 9 times out of 10, they're going to begin that search in Google. Okay, so we need to get found. Then there's this whole notion of the consideration phase. So this is kind of where the people are beginning to go off and do their own research. This used to be controllable by salespeople. It's no longer controllable by salespeople. So people are going in here, they're doing peer reviews, they're doing research, they're going to social networks, they're doing a wide array of research. And as younger generations grow up, come into the workforce, and become buyers, you are dealing with a universe of people who live 140 characters at a time. They have no notion of speaking to people on a telephone. They only text. So that's why I said before, the issues that we're going to tackle today are going to go on well past any horizon that you or I can see. This is a trend that's simply going to continue. So purchase decision. This is when hopefully the content that we've put out is good enough that we've enticed somebody to engage. And now we're talking human to human, salesperson to buyer. So the modern B2B buyer journey, it's basically a series of research points wherein these buyers are going to consume digital content up to a certain point of engagement. We talked a little bit about the awareness. Now within that middle section of the quote-unquote lower intestine graphic, like we like to call it, you've got some information gathering, you've got some comparison, and if people are going to get through these two phases, then they're hopefully going to come to this phase, which is going to be the engagement phase. This is the point at which somebody says, okay, I'm ready to talk to another human being. So where does CRM fit in all this? Okay, CRM is basically designed to manage and assist with the engagement and purchase decisions only. This is the only part of this whole journey that CRM is capable of managing from a technology point of view. So unless we can get sales engaged earlier, you are operating at somewhat of a disadvantage because you don't know what's happening up here. It's the whole essence of sales marketing alignment, of lead to revenue management. It's why people are giving very serious consideration to adding marketing automation into their CRM systems, because people are starting to come to the realization that CRM is set up to manage only a part of this quote-unquote buyer journey. It used to manage much more of it, but now it manages much less of it. So in order to manage the whole cycle, we've got to bring marketing automation into the fold. In the current state, and meaning standalone without any marketing tools bolted into them, CRM systems are not going to be able to help you deal with these first three phases. The disconnected approach. The most common problem that we see at companies, and we talk to hundreds of companies that are looking to fix these problems. The most common problem is there's a disconnect between marketing and sales. In many, many ways, there's a disconnect between technologies. There's a disconnect between process. They don't trust each other. Half the time, they don't even like each other. So you've got major issues between marketing and sales in a lot of organizations. The mistrust, the dislike, the finger pointing, all of those things that we always hear about. The marketers are from Venus and sales are from Mars. The books have been written about it. It all stems from the fact that there's very little accountability across the entire buy cycle, and it's been getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So marketing, of course, is focused on managing awareness, information gathering, and comparison phases. Sales is focused on engagement. Each is kind of doing things in their own way and oftentimes not communicating, and it basically leads to what we call a lack of a cohesive funnel, which has side effects. The side effects are bad metrics, lost leads, lost sales. We'll talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment. So let's talk about CRM for a second. We're going to call it traditional CRM, not because it's legacy or outdated or anything along those lines. We're just going to say traditional CRM that doesn't have marketing attached to it. It's very good at managing sales activities and tasks. It's very good at managing pipeline and forecasts. It's very good at managing sales processes and opportunity stages. It's excellent at managing post-sale client relationships. When you think of the term and the acronym customer relationship management, okay? The first word is customer, not buyer. The assumption is that we already know who you are by the time you're in CRM, and we know a lot about you, and sales is simply going to complete the process in CRM, okay? So the way I like to talk about the differences between CRM and marketing automation is CRM systems are fundamentally designed to manage the selling process, and that's vastly different than the buying process. Okay, so keep that in the back of your mind as we move through this. Defining marketing automation, okay, it's a platform that's used to create, manage, and track lead gen programs and activities. It's a business process management solution to manage and capture scoring, routing, and management of lead flow. It's an analytics engine for tracking marketing spend related to sales opportunity. Have you seen in a bullet point anywhere here where it says it's an email blasting tool? No, because that's not what marketing automation is. If you're interested in email blasting tools, you can go get MailChimp for $9.99 a month and have at it. You're not going to be very successful in lead generation, but I want to be very clear. Marketing automation is oftentimes confused with email marketing and landing pages. Oh, well, I need those three things, so I'm going to go get marketing automation. Marketing automation is a BPM solution, a business process management solution. It's meant to manage the process of capturing, routing, scoring, and managing leads as they move through the top of the funnel. That's been the biggest misconception. It's also been an issue with adoption with marketing automation. Folks have struggled with it. They've never dealt with BPM because they're marketers and they've only dealt with email tools and landing page tools, etc. So the same thing could be said of CRM systems in the 90s. When they first started coming up, people, they dealt with contact management. Did they ever really deal with the whole cycle that CRM presented to them? No, they hadn't. There was a struggle period there for a while. And marketing automation is going through similar things, right? Marketers are having to change the way they think. They can't think in terms of discrete campaign activity anymore. They have to think in terms of the entire process, which, guess what, involves a department other than marketing. It involves sales, meaning marketing and sales have to come together and work closely together, which is foreign to many marketing and sales departments in many companies. But I will tell you right now, marketing automation is extremely relevant to sales. Once sales gets a full understanding of what marketing automation can deliver to them, sales becomes the biggest advocate of marketing automation in a company. And I'll explain why in the next couple of slides. Firstly, they're designed to manage the buyer journey, 100%. They capture and they react to explicit and implicit buyer touch points. What are those? An explicit touch point would be I come onto your site and I fill out a form and I hit enter. That's explicit. I'm explicitly telling you who I am. Implicit would be 3 weeks after I filled that form out, I came to your website and spent 30 minutes on it. Didn't fill out a form. I just came and spent 30 minutes on it. Now, marketing automation is capable of recognizing that secondary interaction, which is actually the more important of the two interactions. They identify, they group, they classify buyers based on their journey stage. You could tell from the data in a marketing automation system if someone is early or late in their stage. They help encourage sales and buyer interactions earlier in the journey. One of the biggest misconceptions of marketing automation is that it's meant to automate the lead qualification process through lead scoring, etc. Not true. Marketing automation systems, at least in my opinion, having been involved with them since day one, are primarily meant to get a salesperson on the phone with a good prospect much sooner. Hands down, that's what marketing automation systems are meant to do. And are also trying to provide some context to sales to say, this is why we think this is a good prospect. This is what this person has done up until this point to warrant your attention. So you need to give this person some attention. And we'll get into that in the actual product piece. So, if we can all agree that we kind of have two almost separate funnels living completely disconnected from each other, how do we marry these two? How do we get them together and make them work better? First of all, let's recognize who owns what. MAP, Marketing Automation Platform, owns Discover and Evaluate. Okay, when people are out discovering, they're evaluating your solutions, etc., this top part of the funnel. Marketing is going to own that. Sales is going to own that engagement and that, closing and buying stage, right? 100%, they're going to own that. But there's this middle ground of qualification, right, that we have to share some ownership between. So let's talk briefly about, first of all, recognizing what technologies we have available to us in each system. At the Discover phase, this is how we get people to find us. When they're doing research, we're doing email campaigns, we're putting landing pages out, we're doing PPC, social, event management, PR, and we're running all these things through the marketing system. Then, as people find us and begin the quote-unquote evaluation or consideration stage, then we're dealing with technologies like website visitor tracking, lead nurture programs, and content marketing. These are the things that we're trying to use to keep people engaged. On the sales side of the fence, the engagement is the contact management, the activity management, the sales process management. And then at the buy stage, it's the opportunity and the funnel management. Okay, those are the root technologies of CRM that we have available to us. Now, to bring these two together, we have to have joint ownership of the qualification stage. Okay, and this means we have to employ things like lead scoring, lead routing, nurture programs. Now, from a technology standpoint, marketing technology owns these, but the process of creation of these is joint owned. Okay, marketing and sales need to come together, and they need to map out these processes that are going to be keyed in and programmatically in the marketing automation system. But marketing and sales have to have joint ownership of the process behind it. So it's a key distinction. So let's talk a little bit about typical lead flow in a B2B organization. No matter what any marketer tells you and how much of a guru they are in this social network or that social network, or their prowess in ad buying and everything else, at the end of the day, marketing is relatively simple and straightforward. We need to get as many people as possible to our website. Okay, we want to bring as many eyeballs into the website as possible. And then once they're in there, we want to present compelling content that makes them want to give us their email address, whether it's to download an infographic, sign up for blog updates, read a case study, register for a webinar. We want to entice people to volunteer that critical piece of information, which is their email address, and start a dialogue with us, no matter how early on it is. We get that information in the marketing automation platform, and then what we do is we watch somebody's interactions. We've cookied them. We can see when they come to our website. We can see everything they're downloading. We see all their interactions. And the marketing automation system, with the help from sales input, is going to have a lead scoring model in place that's going to say, when somebody does these things, we're going to score them. And if they score to a certain level, we're going to pass them into the CRM system. But we're not going to lose contact with that lead now. That's what happens most of the time. We lose contact with it. Marketing automation, when well integrated to a CRM like Infor, is going to maintain visibility into that lead as it moves through the sales half of the funnel now. Okay, and not everybody's going to go to opportunity. We'd love to have, huge percentages of people convert to ops, but that's simply not the case. So some are going to go to op and close or fall out, and some are going to be recycled back to marketing into nurture programs. And that's one of the examples we're going to show you at the end here. I want to talk a little bit about this graphic because it drives a point home that's extremely relevant to the technology. We think about marketing and we think about sales, right? We think what they care about, what their motivation is. Every marketer from Marketing 101 class at university is drilled into their head. One of the most important things that they need to consider is reach. Okay, reaching the most people for the least amount of spend. Okay, some of the root metrics of marketing that is taught to any direct marketer worth their salt: CPM, cost per thousand, cost per million, getting the most clicks, getting lower click-through rates, PPC. We want to present our content to the most people for the lowest cost. Okay, now that's fine, but sales cares about something completely different. Sales only cares about having a conversation with somebody who has the capacity to buy. Okay, you're not going to go pitch, selling a 747 to a taxi driver. It's just not going to happen. They don't have the capacity to buy that. So sales only cares about talking to a much smaller subset of people that marketing care about talking about. So how do we resolve the difference? As well, in the past, marketing would do a spreadsheet. They would put out like a white paper behind a form. They capture 1,000 people to that, and then they would load that into the CRM system with a lead source and say, okay, sales, you now own these. So you have to call every one of these people and qualify them. That's not realistic in many cases, because what sales does is they cherry pick that list, and they'll say, well, I know this company and that company, and I'm going to call this one and that one. And then what happens is a certain percentage. So let's say if sales realistically got to 50% of your 1,000 leads, arbitrary number here, and they got in contact with 500 people. Of the 500 they didn't contact in a timely manner, a certain percentage of those were warm leads. And they continued to do their research even though you didn't talk to them, and they continued to research you and 3 other competitors. And then they went with one of your competitors because one of your competitors called them and you didn't. And that's a very common thing that happens. Forrester actually originally created a variation of this graphic and did research on this, and I forget what the percentage number was. It was something like 20% of the leads that sales doesn't call have rudimentary interest or are quote-unquote warm, but they leak out of the funnel because sales didn't get to them. And it's not sales' fault. It's both marketing and sales' fault. It's not one side or the other. So keep that in the back of your mind as well. Challenges with, excuse me, CRM systems as a whole. And this is coming from somebody who's worked at a CRM system, a CRM software application myself years and years ago during CRM's kind of big bloom during the late 90s. So I have hands-on experience with CRM, and I could speak to it at least with some level of knowledge about some of the issues. Adoption after all these years, CRM systems are still a system that requires data input for sales to work and function. Now, it's vastly different today than it was 10 or 15 years ago. 10 or 15 years ago, you had to coerce, beat, reward salespeople to use CRM systems. Today, most competent salespeople are very good at using CRM systems and understand the value and the necessity of CRM. You simply can't work in today's world. I couldn't imagine working without a CRM system today. However, most salespeople would accept the fact that they need to feed the CRM system. It doesn't feed them, okay, at least to some extent. All the processes in CRM are organized around managing things like post-qualification activities. CRM helps sales organize, but it does not address the support a third of the new funnel, the lead to sales funnel. How does marketing automation help? Number one, it identifies. It uses things like email campaigns, lead capture pages, etc., to contain script that places a first-party persistent cookie on the machine of the responder. This persistent cookie tracks what we call downstream web visits. So here's what a downstream web visit is. I already referenced it once. Let's say you send an email campaign out with a link to a research paper. Click here, fill the form out, download it. Okay, those are the easy metrics. We're going to get those. Right? We're going to know that somebody took that action. The better data is the 3 weeks later when they come back and they browse around and read our blog and pull down 3 other things that aren't behind a form. That's actually the most valuable information. So that's the information that these the technologies that we have in marketing automation allow us to get. And then it can notify sales that there's been a meaningful interaction. Hey, that person that downloaded the white paper 3 weeks ago has been on a site for a half hour today. Send an alert over to the salesperson assigned to them and encourage that salesperson to reach out, not with a heavy, deep breathing, I'm watching you on my website type tone, but hey, you know, we noticed you downloaded our white paper a few weeks ago. I wanted to reach out and see if you had any questions. So it's encouraging a connect between leads and prospects earlier in the sales cycle. When they're in there and they're poking around your website that week after they download the white paper, they're in the evaluation stage at that point. Okay, they're beyond the initial stage and they're now in a deeper stage, and they're most likely looking at you and competitors during that stage. There's been lots of research done on these stages. So that's the critical piece of information that we would normally miss and we just simply wouldn't know about, right? So if we think back to the sideways funnel where leads are leaking out, if that person that downloaded the white paper just so happened to be one of the leads that sales didn't call when the spreadsheet was loaded into CRM, and they came and poked around our website for a half an hour, and then they went over to a competitor's website, and then we don't contact them, but our competitor does, the other competitor has the leg up in that scenario. We can classify. Leads are going to be classified into groups based on demographic info and activity. We'll put them into buckets, which in turn may drop them into lead nurture programs. We can assign them to sales in CRM so that we get timely assignment to the right people. Nurturing, this is a huge thing, and we're going to show this. Leads that aren't ready for sales engagement are going to be nurtured, or leads that have been passed too soon get recycled back to marketing for further nurturing. Leads that just aren't ready to go yet. So lead nurturing is going to be fully automated. It's going to completely take the guesswork out of managing early stage leads by salespeople. It's going to ensure that you never have a situation like that sideways funnel that I showed where people are dripping out the bottom because we're not communicating with them. It doesn't reduce it, it completely eliminates it from happening. So we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the product. Finally, accountability. This is a huge one. The marketing automation systems make both marketing and sales fully accountable for leads. There's no guesswork. There's no finger pointing. There's no he said, she said. The data and the metrics and the reports eliminate finger pointing 100%. In a good way, in a very positive way. And tracking of the leads right through to the opportunity gives sales some very useful tools in figuring out where they should spend more money, spend less money. Marketing automation is going to enable marketing and sales to share accountability for the entire funnel. We see in many organizations today that marketing has quota-type goals that sales used to have. Marketing is responsible for generating a significant percentage of pipeline development, and they're held accountable to that because we can now. We can hold marketing accountable and say, marketing, you have to deliver, pretty much 95% of sales qualified leads every month. And you have to be accountable for ensuring that 50% of those leads pre-qualify to CRM. So there's metrics like that being used at many organizations today, not because someone had a revelation that, hey, we think marketing needs to be responsible for this, but now the marketing automation systems and CRM systems like Infor are connected together at a deep level. We can actually do that. We can actually have trustworthy metrics that we can base those processes on. We're going to switch gears here for a sec, and we're going to try to show you what something like this looks like to a salesperson. Okay, so let's imagine a scenario. A scenario is that there's a lead up here, Kevin Miller. Okay, and he's been on our website. He's downloaded a white paper. We've identified who he is. He's going to score up to a certain point, and then we're going to send a lead alert via either a task in Infor or an email alert saying, hey, Mr. Salesperson, you have a new lead, Kevin Miller, who's pre-qualified as a SQL, sales qualified lead. You need to go in and review his record in Infor. So the sales rep comes in, and one of the things they can do is, if you look down here, part of the integration that we've developed between Infor and Salesfusion, we've been at this a long time with Infor, is we actually have objects that we install natively inside of Infor CRM, and they're basically categorical. So we've got events, we've got landing page completions, email campaigns, clicked links, what people are downloading off our website, and then web activity. So these are the main categories of information that a marketing automation system is going to capture. And we drop those natively into the system so that you can report and do workflow on it natively inside of your CRM system. That's important. But we also have basically an iframe that will launch in frame inside of Infor, which is a look back, and we call that the buyer journey or the contact journey, and we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So if I click my way through here, for example, and I'm a rep, and I come in here and I look at Kevin, I see, okay, has he filled out any landing pages? Oh yeah, he's filled out a couple of landing pages. He has received a bunch of emails. He opened this one 3 times, and he clicked through this one, and then I can see the links that he's clicked, and then I can see every time he's come to the website. Every single web visit, how did he come in, what was the referring domain, how often was he on, and then you can actually drill down a layer into this and see what pages and in what order did Kevin look at when he came onto the site, right? So think back a couple slides when I said marketing automation provides context, right? So this is the context. So this is the information that sales has that they never would have had this information before. So we have it in native entities so that you can drop this in to Infor. We also have the iframe. So we click on the iframe, you'll see this is the contact journey. And basically the contact journey is much more popular with salespeople because it's a little bit more visual, but it's going to show you, here's all the Salesfusion activities. It's going to tell you the activity type. This was a web hit, this was a web hit, etc. It's going to tell you the page that they looked at. You can go through and look at totals, and this is a more of a graphical view and say, wow, we've had a spike of web activity, and then it dropped off, and then Kevin came back to the site again. So this is looking at web hits in a time series analysis in a 30, 60, 90-day look back. And it looks at other things like the email campaigns, landing pages, and events. So again, we're trying to show salespeople, what does that interaction look like? What does that buyer journey look like? Are they peaking? Are they dropping off? Okay, are they really engaged, or are they not that engaged right now? And then we look at things like, okay, lead scoring. You've told me that Kevin is a 663, and had I not been a Salesfusion employee, this would have had some color code behind it. Usually red would be hot, and it would kind of slide all the way up to go to red hot versus cold. This is telling you, well, hey, he did this and he got a point. He did this and he got a point. So we're trying to put some relevancy behind lead scoring and show people this is why we think this is a good lead versus not a good lead. We can also take actions against leads in here as well. We've added some levers, and we actually have a new variation of this iframe that allows sales reps to pick campaigns to put people into. But right now, you can go in here and just add somebody to a list, or I can send them a one-off email from here using marketing-approved templates. So there's some levers that we can pull and some interactions that we can have as well. So again, by the time a lead gets to sales, we would have done some work against that lead. Obviously, we would have done some pre-qualification through the lead scoring model. We deliver this on a silver platter to the sales team, and we send an alert saying, here's a good lead, you need to go in and check it out. And then we back that up by providing all of the information that the marketing system has been able to gather up to this point and give that to the salesperson so they can do a better job. It's been proven through a couple of different research studies. I know Aberdeen did a really good one on inside sales teams, and the engagement that salespeople have, the first interaction when they have this information is a much better interaction and leads to a second interaction, because you can when salespeople understand this and we train them on it and how to use it, they can go in and look, well, this guy just continues to come to these 3 pages on my website. When I call them, I'm going to probably talk about stuff that's relevant to those pages on my website. Okay. So let's switch gears again, and we want to go over actually into the marketing automation product. So right now we're kind of in Salesfusion. We're in the main marketing automation platform, and we talked a little bit about nurture programs as we were going through the first part of the presentation. And this is where I want to drive home how important it is to have a marketing automation platform that's deeply and natively integrated to your CRM system. We can all go out and buy an email tool and throw email results in the record, but that's just meaningless data for the most part. What we're trying to get at, as I mentioned way back in the slide deck, is BPM, business process management. We want sales and marketing working in a cohesive manner to achieve a common goal. So let me give you probably one of the best examples I can give you of that. In our system, you've got a navigation. There's all kinds of goodies in here for the marketers. There's tons of tools for campaigns and landing pages and event management and lead management, et cetera, et cetera. Let's take a look at what I will call the absolute essence of nurture programs. We're going to go in and we're going to look at a sample campaign that we have built for demos. This is a trigger-based campaign. You'll see we've got a name for it up here. It says add to nurture when value changes. Okay, so let's see what that means. We've got a couple of different tabs here for information about the campaign, but most importantly, we'll go into the flow designer. This is what I mean by BPM. When you're building an email communication inside of Salesfusion that's hooked up to your CRM, you're not just blasting out emails, you're thinking through why I'm sending the emails. Okay, so let's think through this process a little bit. One of the most common things that happens between marketing and sales is that marketing will pass a bunch of leads over to sales. They'll go in the sales system, the CRM system, Infor, and sales will start making some phone calls. Well, guess what? People don't pick up their phones anymore. It's a rare thing that somebody picks up a phone from a phone number they don't recognize. So you're going to get a couple of voicemails, okay? And if this person doesn't call you back, you're going to leave a few more voicemails. And I think, statistically speaking, most salespeople give up after 4 to 5 voicemails, and they just move on to the next, right? Salespeople have quotas, monthly quotas, quarterly quotas, whatever, and they got to go to where the money's at. They got to go to where they can close deals, right? So if they have somebody that just keep calling and they're not calling them back, on to the next one, right? The question is, you still don't know if that lead was warm or not, based on the fact that they're not calling you back. They just might not be ready yet. They might not be at that stage yet, okay? And people today, especially the younger you get, the more common this is, people today aren't normally used to dealing with telephone calls. It's a lost art. So they're used to dealing in text messages and SMS and email, and that's it, and chat. So giving up by not getting somebody live on the phone is a terrible mistake in today's world. But everybody does it, unfortunately. So how do we stop that from happening? This is the easiest way to do that. So when we're building a program, one of the things we're doing is we're actually beginning the program with something we call conditional logic. Okay? And what conditional logic does is it allows Salesfusion to set a condition in the system that runs every 15 minutes. So the condition I'm going to set is I'm going to set a condition that evaluates a contact field value in CRM, meaning every 15 minutes I'm going to go out and look at the leader contact table inside of Infor. Every 15 minutes for something. What am I looking for? I'm looking for the lead status field inside of Infor. So let's say on the lead in the contact field, we've got a status field. And let's say that status field is a drop-down list. Open, contacted, disqualified, competitor, good lead, bad lead, whatever your drop-down lists are going to be. And you can add to that drop-down list in CRM. So what we're showing you here is that this is a sample drop-down list in Infor. And we've added one called Nurture. Okay, so salesperson scenario, call, voicemail. Rather than just walk away from the lead, let me just go to my drop-down list in the lead record and flag that lead, Kevin Miller, as Nurture. 15 minutes later, Salesfusion will see that, and we will put them into a campaign. And this campaign could be a 6-step series of emails that's sending really high-value content. Read this new analyst blog post that we just published. Read this new white paper. Check out this case study. Watch our video. You start throwing your best stuff out at people, content-wise. It doesn't matter if it's anywhere else. It could be sitting on your website already, but you're trying to hand-deliver them content, okay? So you're sending them an email, and then we're going to ask the question, did they open an email? Did they click on any link in the email, or did they click specifically on the link that I wanted them to? Right? This is usually the case that folks will work with. So I had a link in there that took them to a blog post, whatever, and that's the link I'm interested in. So now what I'm going to say is, yes, they did. So now what? Now we'll start getting into the blending of sales and marketing actions, which is really the purest definition of nurture marketing that exists. Add a CRM action, add a task. So what I'm saying is, here's the little kind of ping pong match going back and forth. I hit the ball over to sales. Sales calls, gets nowhere, hits the ball back to me. I market, get an interaction. Now, boom, I'm kicking it back to sales. And I'm doing that by creating a task in the CRM system. It's a real task. It's not a fake task. It's like a real CRM Infor task. And it's going to be assigned to the person who's assigned to that lead record. And basically what it's saying now is you can customize what that task looks like, and you can say, okay, sales, you've got a lead in nurture that's been active. And then they can go in, and guess where they go? They go back to Kevin's record, and they see what the most recent activity is, and then they try to reach out either by email or phone. Say, hey, this is, Joe Sales Guy. I noticed you were back looking around on our blog post today. Can we set up 5 minutes to talk? Those type of interactions are much more likely to turn into phone calls because it's secondary now. That we're assuming that those people are a little bit deeper in the evaluation stage, getting closer to the stage where they're willing to talk to somebody. And we're trying to use these nurture programs to fish that out. There's other actions we could take. We can set an alert. We can update the contact record. We could change the status from nurture. So we actually can control that. We can go in and say, okay, well, now change the status, not from nurture, but from back to pre-qual. Or we can even go as far as add physical opportunities in the CRM system if we wanted. And then, of course, from an alerting standpoint, we can add alerts and say, okay, here's an email. In the email, it's going to say, Joe Salesperson, one of your leads that you dropped into nurture is active again. We recommend that you reach out to them. And then if they change the status to, let's say, qualified, that would take them out of the nurture going forward. They wouldn't get any more emails in the nurture program. So that little back and forth between marketing and sales is what everybody wants. It's where everybody wants to get to. It's so relevant because we have to recognize the fact that we're adapting our process to how people buy. Okay, we're not assuming that we can force people into our selling process. That's one of the funny things about selling methodologies that I always laughed about is you assume that you can make people follow your methodology for sales. You can't anymore. You've got to adapt to how they buy, and how they buy is online and through emails and this type of evaluation. So what we're doing is we're adapting the way we sell, we're adapting the way marketing and sales work together, we're adapting to the changes in the environment. If you're a fan of Charles Darwin, you'll realize that it's those who adapt that survive. And it's a new world. It's a new way that people buy. These buyer journeys and buyer personas are crucial to understand and get our heads around. And if we want to be successful as companies today, this is the next phase of customer relationship management. It's the full funnel management from ID, identification, research, right down to the opportunity stage. I'm guessing that probably brings us to the question slide. So Brianna, I will ask for you to come back on and see if we had any questions pop up throughout the session that you'd like me to tackle, but that's going to conclude the presentation and the demo portion.
Thanks, Kevin. That was wonderful. Very informative. At this time, we don't have any questions. People out there, if you have a minute or two, you want to put something in there, that's great. Otherwise, like I said before, if you think of any question at the conclusion of this this presentation, you get back to your desk or you're sitting there and thinking about this, you can for sure send me an email and I will make sure that it gets answered. And if you don't have my email address, info@customerfx.com, pretty easy to remember, send it there and we'll make sure you get it answered. We did have one come in, Kevin, and Rich is wondering how much staff does this require on the marketing side?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's actually one of our qualifications ourselves. We want an organization that has at least two, probably more than that, in a marketing staff. From a usability standpoint, this is something that could be run completely by one person. How much time you dedicate to it is somewhat determined by the type of programs you run. I mean, maybe you're a light email marketer and you create a couple of nurtures and they don't require that much attention. Then it might be, sparse interaction with the system if you're not building new landing pages and new programs. If you're a large organization that's running 10 to 15 net new campaigns per month, you may have a staff of 2 using this thing constantly. So it kind of slides up and down. But, you need to be doing a fair amount of multi-channel marketing. You're doing social, you're doing events, you're doing a fair amount of outbound communications. You have a website that you're trying to bring people into. You want to have that kind of good mixture of inbound and outbound programs that you're running in an organization. Because frankly, if you're just doing like a newsletter each month and that's the extent of it, you're not going to get much value out of a system like this. So it's more about what type of programs are you running or what type of programs you want to run, because this system will facilitate those programs. But the actual use of it, I mean, gosh, I was a one-man shop in marketing for a long time, and this system, it's like it's getting octopus arms. I could do 10 different things at once with it. So it definitely can be used by one person.
All right, we have another question. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this or not, Kevin, but somebody is wondering if you could explain the main differences between Silverpop and Salesfusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Silverpop's solution has been around a long time, and they basically began as a large-scale ESP, and that stands for Email Service Provider. And I'll tell you that's probably what they're still best at. They did a few acquisitions over the years. They've acquired some smaller marketing automation companies and tried to bring them in and create more of a B2B marketing automation platform, and I'd say they're probably not that successful with it. They've always really been strong on the big industrial strength consumer email programs like a Sears or a Target's going to do. So very, very good at that. So very different type of application in Salesfusion. I don't classify them as a day in and day out competitor of ours. We'll see them from time to time. And since acquisition by IBM, we rarely see them at all anymore. So mostly an email-focused company.
All right. Our next question is in regards to the licensing model, and just wondering what that is like. Is it similar to Infor CRM?
No, a little bit different than the way CRM works, because we don't really care too much about users per se, whereas CRM is more of a user license model. Marketing automation is more of a database size model. So for us, we care about the amount of contacts, contacts that you have in your marketing automation database. Now, when we're dealing with the integration with Infor, you're already going to have Infor most likely, and you plug this into Infor, and you bring down or synchronize a subset of the people that are in your Infor database. So let's say you have leads, contacts, and accounts in Infor, and I've got 20,000 leads. Now, of those 20,000 leads, I know I want to actively market to 15,000 of them, so you'd sync 15,000 down, and that puts you into a certain pricing tier in Salesfusion, which would be 0 to 10,000, 10 to 20,000, etc. So it's based on the amount of contacts. You could have as many users or licenses as you want, and in fact, if you had a sales team of 200 people, when we first connect, we automatically sync your user table so that each of your Infor users is also a corresponding Salesfusion user, so they can get the alerts and all that other good stuff, and there's no cost to that.
Thanks, Kevin. And then the last question we have is just in regards to how many, from your viewpoint of Salesfusion, how many Infor CRM customers would you say are using Salesfusion, or a percentage? Have you seen an uptick in that, or is it just a new?
No, it's not
area?
new. Yeah, it's not a new area for us. We've actually we established a partnership back when Saleslogix was part of Sage. So it dates back to that. And I believe it was late 2010 we launched our first integration with version 7.5.2, and it was native back then. It's actually not that different. The integration not that different. It's improved obviously, but it's not that different than it was when we first deployed it. So we've had a long-standing relationship with Infor CRM, and if I couldn't tell you an exact number, but it's probably north of 150 Infor companies use Salesfusion.
All right, Kevin. Well, that is all the questions. Those are all the questions we have this afternoon. And as as most of you know who have been to our webinars, we will be posting this to customerfx.com. We will also be posting this to our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/customerfx. And you can expect to see that up there before the end of this week. Other than that, if you have any questions that you think of later, please feel free to post those. And Kevin, thank you again. That was a great presentation.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the opportunity to talk to you folks, and have a great afternoon.
Bye now.